So, I mean, if you get a copy of the program.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for being with us today. Today, we unveil the monument to the 1741 project, honoring the lives lost to slavery and the struggle for freedom. While Commissioner Granados will go into more background of this project a bit later, I want to express how grateful I am for the Commissioner Board's work, as well as the willingness of our community partners to engage with us on this important topic and work with us. While the occasion we are gathered to commemorate today is a solemn one, today also represents community, healing, and a shared mission to authentically understand and learn from American history. I'd now like to turn the program over to Reverend Dr. Wanda Lundy of Shalom Hope First Presbyterian Church for our invocation.
Imagine the emotions the enslaved individuals embarking on their perilous journey towards freedom must have felt. Profound fear, relentless desperation, flickering hope, and unwavering resilience. Men bore the heavy mantle of responsibility for their families' liberation, grappling with anxiety and the haunting specter of potential failure. Women, in turn, navigated additional layers of fear, deeply concerned for their safety and the welfare of their children, determined to shield their young ones from the brutalities of enslavement. Innocent children faced the stark reality of their perilous circumstances, wrestling with confusion and terror, all while clutching onto glimmers of hope for a brighter future. Together, these emotional responses unveil the deep psychological scars left by slavery and illuminate the indomitable spirit of those surviving for liberation. Meanwhile, the emotions felt by white men, women, and children during the desperate escapes of Black enslaved individuals were steeped in fear and anxiety for their own security. Men may have sensed a vulnerable fracture in their authority over the enslaved, fostering apprehensions above uprisings and potential conflict. Women likely experienced heightened trepidation for their families, fearfully anticipating the chaos that could erupt in the wake of these escapes. Children, absorbing the fearful energy of their surroundings, often wrestled with their own confusion and anxiety concerning the turbulent events occurring around them. This shared emotional turmoil paints a vivid picture of the charged atmosphere of the period, colored by fears of upheaval threatening to disrupt their lives and the societal structure they endeavored to uphold. Here we stand today, together, embracing a freedom that once eluded both Black and white individuals alike. Amanda Gorman in The Hill We Climb powerfully reminds us, so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Gorman reminds us that despite the way things seem at this time, we need each other. This is the promise to Glade, the hill we climb if only we dared. Being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. In 2015, 6 women and 3 men were killed at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, during prayer and Bible study. That same year, I had the honor of guiding 46 academics and everyday individuals on a civil rights tour. As we visited the tear-stained congregation, an elder's reflective words caught me off guard, leaving a lasting impact. He was asked, How do you come back into this church Sunday after Sunday, knowing what your church members were that were executed in this building? With profound grace, he spoke of forgiveness as the pathway forward, the echo and the legacy of our ancestors. Our resilience springs from our ability to forgive, a testament to who we are. He recounted how our ancestors endured brutal whippings in cotton fields because they didn't pick enough cotton or didn't pick fast enough. He said our ancestors found a way to survive by forgiving. We don't have the names of our ancestors who this day is dedicated to, so I'd like to call the names of those South Carolinians who were so tragically lost. Reverend Clementi Pickney, Cynthia Hurd, Tawanda Sanders, Sharonda Coleman Singleton, Reverend DePayne Middleton Doctor, Reverend Daniel Simmons, Susan Jackson, Ethel Lance, Myrna Thompson. Our prayer today is for peace, freedom, and justice for all. Unless we are all free, no one is free. Unless there is justice for all, there is justice for none. Unless we all have peace, there is no peace for any of us. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with each one of us. Mahatma Gandhi wisely stated, "We but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we can change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. This is the divine mystery supreme. This profound truth underscores our reality, for we need not await the action of others." The shortened version of this is, be the change you want to see. Amen.
I'd now like to ask Tamia Muslim to come sing the national anthem. I'm sorry, before we do that, I'd like to call up Imam Rahman Muhammad to provide the invocation.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Simply means peace and blessings be upon all of you this morning. We're all human family. My name is Imam Rahman, as my sister so eloquently described me. I'm the resident Imam of Masjid al-Hadi, right across the street. And I'm here because I'm concerned about the city of Elizabeth. I want to make it a better place for our children, for us to live as productive human beings here in this community. It's very, very important what happened in 1741. We lost not just slaves, but we lost human beings. That's more important than just slaves. We're human beings, all of us, irregardless of our pigmentation, what we look like. We're human beings. The problem is not black or white. The problem is human. We are moral creatures. We were created to be moral. We have moral characteristics. And if we live up to them, we'll have a better place here in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Allahu Akbar. So I simply want to open up with a small prayer, not just for the three brothers that died here, but for you, the souls that are here this morning. Short prayer, please. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. As-siratal ladina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin. English, with the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Praise be to God, the cherisher and sustainer of all the worlds, the most gracious, the most merciful. master of the day of judgment. Thee do we worship, and thy aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy grace, those whose portions are not wrath and who go not astray. Amen. We are all family, one human family. And once we get that into our conscious mind, remove it from the subconscious in the conscious mind, we have to treat each other as human beings and respect each other. Allah says in the Quran, I just want to share this and I'm going to conclude. He says something to us about our human creation. I want to share this with you. It says in the Quran, for all humanity, regardless of your ethnicity. It's not about your ethnicity, it's about your humanity. That's what counts. He says, O mankind, all of us, we created you from a single pair of male and female. Both had dignity in the Quran. And made you into nations and tribes that you may know each other, not despise one another. That's scripture. So the same God that created you is telling you why he created you. Not to hang 3 souls here, 1741, for a fake slave revolt. It was fake. We should learn from this and go on and teach our children what happened here so it never happens again. That's life. That's what this is about. We are all human family. So we have been created so that we may know one another, not despise one another. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
I'd now like to call Tamia Muslim and Tawanda Porterfield Muslim, who will be performing our national anthems.
Rise, that the dark past has brought us. Sing a song full of the faith that the present has taught us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
That was beautiful. I'd now like to introduce Commissioner Sergio Granados.
Can we give it up for them one more time? We're trying to catch up to those high notes. We couldn't catch up to that right there. Good morning, everyone. Today we gather to honor and remember not only the three men who tragically lost their lives in 1741, but also the countless individuals who endured the brutal reality of slavery. This memorial stands as a testament to their memory, reflecting both the darkest moments in our history and the unbreakable strength of those who suffered under oppression. Since the National United Youth Council, Inc. brought this tragedy to our attention, the Union County Board of County Commissioners has worked with residents, historians, and community advocates to ensure this story told with accuracy, dignity, and respect. Over the past year, we have engaged in a collaborative process with historians, the Siloam Hope First Presbyterian Church, and local organizations to uncover the full history of these events with both sensitivity and purpose. We have come to understand not only the specific tragedy of 1741 that is amongst the darkest days in our history, but also the broader context of slavery in our area. We wanted to get this right, not only for historical accuracy, but also honor the pain, resilience, and legacy left by these individuals and all others who suffered under slavery. Today, as we unveil this memorial, we remember the lives lost and pay tribute to all those who endured unimaginable hardships in the fight for freedom. We're committed to preserving this history and acknowledging the courage and strength of those who came before us. I want to extend my gratitude to everyone who helped make this memorial a reality. And at this time, one of those individuals, I'd like to call upon Salaam Ismial to share a few words.
And I ask for people of the 1741 committee, please come forward. Cynthia, come on. Reverend Clyde, Dom. In 2019, one of my zany friends, I call him zany because he always showed me something, want me to do something, take on some kind of fight or whatever. He showed me this book written by this woman. I think she was out of Plainfield, Miss Washington, right? And it was a book dealing with historical members of the African American community throughout the county. But then there was a small section that talked about what happened in 1741. Now in school, my Islamic school, where I heard 1741 so-called revolt, and I heard, just like the brother said, like the Imam said, it was a false claim that created hysteria all across the land. But let me start by saying this. 1664, establishment of the Elizabeth town, Elizabeth, New Jersey, 360 years ago. 360 years. 77 years from 64 to 1741, Elizabeth was the state capital, and it was the spot for establishing land and development. in this state of New Jersey. It was the first state capital. They brought over hundreds of slaves. First sanctioned by the King Charles, I believe his name was. He gave it to George Carteret. And what's the other guy? And they kind of split lands. They took parts of New York, Connecticut, all the way down to Delaware. And they said, the king said, you take part, Carteret, and you take part, I think his name is, named at one of the, Berkeley Heights, I think that's his name. He's named after one of those cities. George Carteret then gave a parcel of responsibility to his cousin, Philip Carteret. He said, Philip Carteret, you will be the governor of New Jersey. And you will be established here in Elizabeth, New Jersey. I'm talking to the kids. I've spent 40 years working with kids. I gotta speak so they can understand what I'm saying. Give me the point, right? So when that happened, Philip Carteret, let me go back a little bit further. Sir Philip Carteret, or Philippe Carteret, out of France, but he changed his name a little bit, took the E off, and that was his cousin, another cousin. He was vicious. He brought 350 slaves to Elizabeth. You know what I'm saying? Because the object of the game was, you bring one slave, we give you 60 acres of land. And your responsibility is to build this land, so make it livable, make it financially doable, and so that's what they did. And Elizabeth was that first city to establish that. Along the way, hundreds, thousands of slaves died in the passage. Some came by way of Porterfield, you know. That was a little drop-off spot where they auctioned off slaves and what have you, and they distributed them to certain areas to do certain tasks. Camden, Hoboken, and my colleague James Carey, and I'll introduce all of them in a minute. There's no sense of me talking about this if I don't give you the history, right? Okay. So, 1741, you fast forward. 1741, there was a so-called conspiracy out of New York City by way of Manhattan. They said the slaves was coming to overturn these plantations, kill the masters, rape the white women, and just take over. Fast forward, years later, over 100-something years, they finally admit that it was the Spaniards and some conversation with the Catholics that created this rumor that went from New York to Connecticut to New Jersey, all the way down to the Delaware area. And it went crazy. They started rounding up slaves, about 100 in this area. Some was hanged, some was burnt at the stake, I'm gonna talk about this in a minute, and some was sent back. What is sent back? Sent back where? Not to Africa. Sent them to where they was kind of like breaking slaves. One location was Jamaica, where they buck break slaves. So when you act crazy here, they sent you to one of the Caribbean areas, which is the first place where they established the slave thing. So I'm gonna teach you today. I'm not here to play no game. This is real. So what ended up happening, they rounded up slaves, about 80. Some white women was hanged. White men was hanged. Some was burnt. Some was sent back. Some was pardoned through the court. Some spent some time in jail, and what have you. So that spread it to Elizabeth. According to our discovery, there were 3 slaves. We're still trying to find their name, Brother Zaid. We're gonna find their name. They rounded up 3 slaves here. I'm gonna say their age were probably between 16 and 25, because those probably was the average age of runaways, and those more likely, because the average age of slaves didn't live long anyway. We died at 40. Any minute, even if the white people didn't live very long, got sick and we just died. So we estimate between 16 and 25, the 3 slaves we presume were right here. Because according to many, many different reports, it said at the site of the county courthouse. They went to a kangaroo court under then Sheriff William Chetwood. He went and ordered the wood, and 4 townsmen, what is his name? Four townsmen was freeholders, or townsmen they call it. These were white men. They was the only one that had the power. They can vote, they can order stuff, they can date a man. Not white women, certainly not blacks. So those are the ones that ran, kind of like managed the area. So they brought the burning wood. And they burned these 3 slaves alive. They burnt them to a crisp. How I know that? Because that's the practice. And they've done this in open forum, just like we hear now. They had their men, their women, and their children watch. Many times those slaves were burnt and it was there for days, sometimes weeks, to rot. So the other slaves that come into these corridors, they'll say, I know not to do what I need not to do, right? It gets worse than that. They stayed there to so much to the body parts have fallen off, just like you burn something real bad. But some of the white folks took parts of their ribs, right there, took their limbs, their head, and they saved them for souvenir. That's how deep it got. This day is not per se about slavery, it's about the atrocity of slavery. Because this went on for hundreds of years, this kind of practice that leaves us here today. Today, we are paying tribute, homage to those individuals. My mother and my dad, born in Mississippi. My dad in the 20s, he born in 1927. My mother, 1931. They live in Metcalf and Greenville, Mississippi, where they grew up at. That's what I'm very passionate about. And I asked Mama, I said, Mom, what the heck was you doing? That's the Jim Crow era. And she told me a story when she was 8 years old. That was 1939 in Mississippi. And 2 of her friends, they were playing in the woods. And they seen a man hanged there. And she said it was not unusual, Reverend, because there's like thousands of, during the Jim Crow, thousands of people still being hanged. And with no recourse. And she told me that story, and I said, well, how do you live? She said, well, when you see white folks walk down the sidewalk, you gotta walk on the street, let them get past. Now I said, Mom, you know I wouldn't do that, right? She said, and you gotta say, yes, ma'am, and if they put the money on the table, I said, Mom, you know I wouldn't do that. He said, you gotta say, you gotta look them in the eye. I said, Mom, you know I wouldn't do that. People that hate me. She said, well, then you'll be dead. I said, so I would have been a dead guy, right? But I heard about those pains, and she told me so much about what's happening during this era. And I said, Mom, so what we're gonna do about it? She said, we gotta tell a story. So all we can do, tell a story, educate, even those white people, because it ain't their fault. Their ancestors are. They left a generation of hurt. And I'm here to say today, just like many others who had their own trials and tribulation with pain, that we can never ever forget about slavery. And we must tell this story. We must say how this pain had reverberated and went for years and years and years, went from slavery to Jim Crow to the civil rights era to this day, to Donald Trump. We gotta tell this story, and you guys gotta help us. It was a struggle. It took me 4 years for y'all to pay attention to this. But we're here today to say that this is important. This is for everybody, black, white, people of good, you know what I'm saying, sister? The moment we stop telling the truth, the moment we stop revealing what happened in this country, we're gonna still fall short of justice and equality, the things that we talk about. So today, we pay homage and remembrance to those 3 individuals. Our quest the 1741, Brother Reverend Clyde Dunning, Reverend James Carey, Sister Basima Abdesalam, Sister Hassana Smith Thomas, Sister Cynthia Dawkins, Brother Tracy Rogers, Brother Don Thunderberg, he's somewhere in here. Reverend Dr. Zachariah, we stayed on top of this. There's a whole lot more unveiling to come. There's a lot of history. Like, guess what? That day that happened when they burnt those individuals, the mayor was right there. That mayor at that time, Bunnell, which we have a building right down the road here. Yeah, he was there, he experienced that. He was actually that mayor at that time. I'm gonna close. He was actually one of those, the roundup. No, he was he was a justice, he was a Supreme Court judge, he was an assemblyman, and he was head of a local militia. So he was here when that burning happened. A whole lot of people experienced that. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna put this beautiful, I like the color green, some don't. I like the color green, I think that's an attractive color. All our young folks here, y'all got a responsibility to bring all the other high school kids and the college kids. Y'all come here and y'all read up. We're gonna have I think the QR code, you're gonna be able to hit it and go through it, right? I don't know how you do all that. You're gonna look at it, you're gonna find out stuff about this. And then you need to tell your friends and your friends' friends. Y'all hear me? My Latin brothers and sisters, I got one last thing I'm gonna say to you. This is your struggle too. Because before there was America, there was Caribbean, and there was South America, there was all, before they even got here. So y'all more African, y'all suffer just as much as we have in this struggle. You got it, and I'm going to start going into the Latin community to teach this, because you need to know this. I'm be willing to open my opportunities up to our white young people, because we need to learn about this. This is important. We talk about, Donald Trump and all these other folks, where are these racists? Bro, if you're not teaching nobody, people don't understand. The more people like us don't understand this, the more people who love this kind of stuff continue to become more emboldened to our communities. We have a responsibility. Black, white, brown, red, yellow. We all precious in Allah's sight, God's sight. And we all have a responsibility. What happened to our people can never be forgotten. No more than any other atrocity that happened. Whether my friends, my brothers from the Jewish community who suffered the Holocaust, my Japanese brother who was bombed with Nagasaki and Hiroshima, who we had to pay $20,000 apiece to this country, and many, many others. But we died doing these kinds of atrocities. We have a responsibility, and we're going to move on with that. So at this time, we want to bring on Brother Zaid Muhammad, and I think that will happen at the, okay. Thank y'all very much.
Okay, all right, you do it right here. Ladies and gentlemen, clergy, county officials, brothers and sisters from that committee that got this work done, give yourselves a round of applause. This is a big deal. I'm a son of Union County. I got a bunch of folks here from Newark from my one of our organizations that I'm affiliated with, the People's Organization for Progress. I've been in Newark most of my adult life, but I'm from Union County, Brother Kara, you know that, right? And I was incredibly honored by Brother Salaam to ask me to come and serve this modest ceremonial function that is important to our traditions from our ancestors. But I also want to further contextualize why this is so important, because this is not just a county story, it's not just Elizabeth's story, it's an international story. In 2001, by virtue of what happened and what took place, by virtue of people like you and me participating in what was known as the World Conference Against Racism in Durban, South Africa, post-apartheid South Africa, the international community declared that the transatlantic slave trade and all of its domestic vestiges was indeed a colossal crime against humanity, and it deserves to be honored and memorialized and treated with the dignity and honor as such. And I'm affiliated with an organization called the Middle Passage Project. The Middle Passage Project does what you guys did already. They created historical markers for almost every point of entry into the Western Hemisphere where our ancestors were brought in captivity. In New Jersey, that means Perth Amboy and Camden. And they would later be brought to markets like this one that Salaam just described. So this is an international story because the slave trade as we knew it was an international enterprise that made a whole lot of people very wealthy at the expense of a whole lot of other people who were captive in the process. I've been asked to do what is called a libation. Here's what I will describe simply as a ritual of unity by which African people for thousands of years, since our civilized beginnings, we've always honored those who have gone before us. So this is a ritual done in that tradition, but crafted specifically to honor these particular ancestors. Now, before we do this, though, I got to acknowledge this. Sons and daughters of Africa, your ancestors never accepted slavery. There was a such thing as slave uprisings. Slavery was wrong, and our ancestors resisted it at every turn they could, and some did it without apology and were willing to face the price that came with that. And we need to honor that as much as we have to honor the price of bondage, because the price of freedom, ultimately, as Malcolm taught us, is indeed death. So, I'm gonna say a couple areas, y'all gonna learn something today. In terms of the language, some of y'all heard some of us say ashe when brother was rocking, right? And ashe is a Yoruba word that means so be it, is the foremother, one of the African foremothers to what you call amen in church, and what we call amen in the mosque, right? But to set that off and to frame that for you, ladies and gentlemen, when I say ibaye, that's when you all will say, right, ibaye means to give thanks, and ashe means so be it, right? So, let me turn this up a little bit. No, you're fine, Salaam. Resistance. If and I had my way, if and I had my way, if and I had my way, I'ma burn that building down. I'm gonna build me something new. I'm gonna build me something new. I'm gonna build me something new when I burn that building down. If and I had my way, if and I had my way, if and I had my way, I'ma burn that building down. 4 directions. North, south, east, west. You say Ibaye. Ibaye.
Ashe.
Ibaye.
Ashe.
Come on, let's get it right. For the ancestors of the Middle Passage, looked across the big pond called the Atlantic Ocean. The millions who never made it to these shores. For those ancestors, we say Ibaye, Ibaye, Ibaye. For those slave rebellions that had impact. The Sada says, all that blood in the Atlantic wasn't all ours. How many of y'all remember the Amistad uprising? That was a victorious slave uprising. For the ancestors who resisted, on the Amistad we say, Ibaye, Ibaye, Ibaye. And the issue's about 1741. But there was a big uprising in New York in 1712. In New York. Yes, there was slavery in New York. Ancestors of the epic 1712 rebellion, we say, Ibaye, Ibaye, Ibaye. Of course, the most famous uprising was that of none other than Mr. Nat Turner, Reverend Nat Turner. Read that book that said the time had come for the last to be first and the first to be last. That uprising, the beginning of the end of slavery as we know it in these United States. We say, Ibaye, Ibaye, Ibaye. And one of the lesser known, but the largest of all the slave uprisings, the New Orleans slave uprising of 1811. Big uprising in the thousands, and the hardest to put down. But that uprising would also lead to the first cultural black capital here in the United States. That was New Orleans. With that, those ancestors, we say, Ibaye, Ibaye, Ibaye. And again, the four directions. North, south, east, west. We say, Ibaye, Ibaye, Ibaye. Run, Mary, run. You got the right to the tree of life. Run, Mary, run. You got the right to the tree of life. Run, Mary, run. You got the right to the tree of life. Run, Mary, run. You got the right to the tree of life. 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 We have a lot to heal from, Elizabeth. Let's bring it together. Let's learn the history. Let's honor those who came before us and let the healing begin. Ibaye,
Ashe.
Ibaye,
Ashe.
Ibaye, Ashe, 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 oh. It is done.
Thank you so much for joining us today. At this time, we're going to invite you to come around the front of the monument as we unveil it. Thank you again.
Zachariah Jackson, BASA News. It's important that BASA News is here. Many people waiting on the national media, which is fitting. But please, I ask you community leaders, those of you that want to get your story out, don't discount the social media. The difference between me and the national media is this right here. When I do a story, you get the whole story. I'm not running back and forth just for a photo op. I'm trying to get to the ground, and I'm trying to do the work that the community leaders are doing. Again, this is Zachariah Jackson at 2 Broad Street in Elizabeth, New Jersey, where 3 in 1741 was burnt at the stake. This group here is headed by Salaam Ismial, a friend of mine that I've been working with since 2011. Again, this is Zachariah Jackson, BASA News. Good day, and as the brother said, Ashe.